Giants fans, it's week 7, and guess what? The Giants won a game. What the fuck? And you're watching True Blue Review. Rich! It's been a damn good week. I forgot how good it feels to win a game.
Yeah. and looked great doing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they just, happened into a win.
Yeah, slovenly won.
It was a solid game.
It was
really was a solid game on their part.
That's right.
Against a very good team.
Yeah. Very much so.
Very exciting. Did not expect that.
Yeah.
You know? I didn't even get really emotional during the game because I didn't want to get let down.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I just stayed there and I was just like, okay. Until it got to the very end of the game, I was like, man, we're going to win.
You know what was genius? The fact that the Giants never said anything before the game about Mike Sullivan.
Yeah.
That was genius.
I wasn't surprised, I guess. I never considered it.
Yeah. We always said, boy, we wish he would give up the offensive duties, but we never thought he would give up the offensive duties.
Definitely a good choice.
Yeah.
And I thought that Mike Sullivan called the perfect game. Exactly what the Giants needed to do in that game is what happened. So that was
You know what it looked like
fantastic.
to me? It looked like to me classic Giants football. Running hard, a good solid running game, not putting a whole lot on Eli's back, letting him dump the ball off here and there, a couple throws down the field. Evan Ingram, used him, a little thin on wide receivers. I thought it was perfect for it was exactly what the doctor called for.
Sure. I think that you could put drives on Eli Manning's back.
Sure.
But entire games, not preferable.
Yeah, not preferable. It's not to say you can't handle it, but he's always worked better with a running game.
Well,
a solid running
when
game.
You have to rely on a bang-out player every single week, that you put the game on their back, i.e., Rodgers, you lose that guy, and then your team just doesn't seem like they're really going to do very well.
You talking about Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie?
No, I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was losing you there.
Because we were looking at the power rankings.
That's right.
From number 2 to number 16 in 1 week.
Yeah. Because of the loss of
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, of course.
Now I think the Giants, obviously, if they lost Eli Manning, would not do as well with Eli Manning.
Sure. You think they would go from 30 to 32 in power rankings? Is that what you're saying? Anyway. Today, we're actually doing both the review of the Broncos game, and we're going to do the preview of the Seattle Seahawks game. Try and condense this down to just one show, much like we did at the very beginning. Beginning of the season, I should say. So we'll run over some stats real quick from the game. For the most part, the Denver stats I think are a little overblown because of the fact that once the Giants got up 20-3, I think they allowed Denver a little bit more space to throw, and there were a lot of pass plays on Denver's part.
A lot of passing. He had over 300 yards passing.
Exactly. And in fact, total pass plays, total attempts, we should say, were 54 attempts. And in rushing attempts, 17 rushing attempts by the Broncos.
They were just shutting them down, man.
So really, I think that we really have to look, as far as statistically for this game, we really have to look at the Giants stats in reference to how impressive their stats were.
Big time.
And they were relatively close for time of possession, actually within a minute apart. 29-24, 30-36. It's what the Giants did in that time.
It seemed like the Giants held the ball longer. But they didn't, obviously.
Yeah, well...
Seems like they did, though.
They had it for 30-36, and the Broncos had it for 29-24. It's almost very even.
Very close.
Yeah. Giants had 54 total plays. Denver 75. That's a big difference. Denver must doing a lot of dump downs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's just the bottom line is, like you were saying earlier, what was the biggest difference in this game? Turnovers.
Yeah, huge. And that's, well, obviously you run 10 plays in a drive and it ends up in a turnover.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And even if the Giants don't produce on that turnover, which obviously the one was a pick six.
Right.
I think the one that Collins got, I don't think they really produced on that turnover.
Yeah, I don't.
And I'm not remember the timeline of the game exactly. But what happens is if you have multiple plays that end up in a turnover, obviously those plays count against you, and
right.
You just don't get anything for it. One of the things I was thinking about as far as the defense is concerned, because they looked like they played last year, and they allowed yardage, but they didn't allow points. Remember we were talking about that stat last year.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
They allow yardage.
Sure.
But they don't allow points.
Kind of like that bend don't break type of mentality.
So when it gets close into the red zone or even into field goal range, they manage a way to have stops, get penalties, get turnovers.
Sure.
And they absolutely look like they did last year.
Yeah.
They looked like the defensive last year.
Right.
And their stats are very lined up with the defensive last year.
Exactly. One stat to note, and I know you'll expound on this, 148 yards rushing for the Giants.
That was awesome. And of course, 117 of them were Darkwa.
Yeah. Behind a solid offensive line.
You really have to give it to the line.
Yeah. No doubt.
Fluker is... I know he blew that stunt last week, and that aggravation against the Chargers.
Yeah.
You know, and I agree with you on that, but when they get behind him to run, man, I mean, he's making some phenomenal plays.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's obviously his strong point from what we could see based on the Chargers game at least.
Well, maybe the Giants are just learning that.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Speaking of... and again, let's stay on the rushing. 32 rushing attempts for the Giants. I know I kind of said it a little earlier, but since we're in the whole rushing thing, we haven't seen that in a long time. 32 rushing attempts.
I think that is because of probably a couple factors. Because they didn't have the receivers in. They all got injured. Right. So I think they kind of game planned towards it. But also, I think Mike Sullivan will call the game different than McAdoo would have called.
Right.
And once that rushing game was working in the first half, he just kept going to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, Eli Manning did not have a lot of yardage, but he was very efficient, and he got yards when he needed to in the passing game.
Right.
But, of course, they didn't. They only had 2 completed passes to wide receivers. But, you know, you can't it's surprising with that stat that they win the game.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the receivers are just hurt. And these got new guys, and I'm glad they got this one game under their belt. It'll probably open it up a little bit for next game, I think.
Yeah, it was interesting watching some of the pregame stuff where he was actually out there quite a bit early on the field with Tavares King and Lewis and the others, and just working with them.
So remember when we talked about Eli Manning not being an emotional player?
Right.
And some people, when they see that, they see a lack of leadership.
Right.
But this is how Eli Manning is a leader.
Yeah, that does show his leadership.
That's how he's a leader.
Right. And
I remember when Cruz first came on the team, he told this story when they were doing their reflecting on their Super Bowl they won with Cruz, and he's just getting on the team. And this guy wasn't even drafted, you know. Eli Manning calls him up in the off season and says, "Hey, it's Eli Manning. Let's hook up. I'm gonna throw a few balls to you." You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, Cruz was excited.
Yeah.
You know?
His leadership is different.
It's a different style. It's a quiet style, but like I say, he leads by example.
Yeah.
And he's very academic. He knows the game.
Yeah.
You know, he's got extremely high IQ, football IQ.
I think in a time of great concern like they had going into this game, I think a lot of people on that, specifically the offensive side of the ball, look at him as the leader, regardless of whatever we think anyway. He's the one that was there. I mean, who's left? Weston Richburg on the offense from the old Super Bowl team?
I don't even know.
Was Richburg? How long ago was?
No, he's only like 4 or 5 seasons.
Oh, okay, all right. So no, there isn't anyone on the offense.
I don't believe so. I mean,
holdover.
If I had to really think about it, but no, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Because Beckham, no. If Cruz was still on the team, like he was last year, he would be him.
Yeah, he would.
But I don't believe there are any players on offense.
So he's the closest thing they have, the guys on that offense, for the most part, to what Giants Super Bowl feels like. Yeah,
it's amazing the turnover these teams have.
Individual stats again for the Giants. Wayne Gallman, 9 rushes, 27 yards. Nice to see him still being a part of this thing.
Sure.
That's great, and he also had some receiving yards as well. 2 catches for 5 yards. Utilize them.
When it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. I thought they had a wonderful game. I thought they managed it perfectly.
And we spoke about him a little bit ago. Evan Ingram actually led the team in receptions with 5 receptions for 82 yards. Big run after catch.
Had a touchdown.
Big one. Yeah, and he had a touchdown.
He's very athletic.
Yep.
You can see it there.
Yeah. Then on the defensive side of the ball.
We also have to mention on the offensive line, we got to mention Justin Pugh.
As far as top players go.
The way he played against Von Miller.
Yeah.
It was just a fantastic game he had against Von Miller.
Did we talk about
Very impressive.
Did we talk about the Denver stats? There's only one stat that we were concerned about. That was the big goose egg called Von Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. There's your Denver stat for the day. Okay. Von Miller 0. Justin Pugh and Red Ellison.
Another thing that I want to say about the offense is how they're able to receive the ball. Mm-hmm. There was about a little over 4 minutes left in the game, and they were able to basically close the game out. They had that 4-minute offense, they call it,
right?
And that's because they can run the ball.
Right.
On 3rd down, Fluker moved over. Darkwa came behind him, and he broke him to the outside for about like 12 yards or whatever it was to get that 1st down, and then they were able to get the clock down to 27 seconds. When they kicked the field goal?
So that may be my shut the fuck up moment here, not to you, but in general. Because here's my shut the fuck up moment. Remember where we had them at 4th and 1 on the fucking goal line? Yeah. And next thing you know, we stop them on the goal line, then we get the ball, and Darkwa gets it 15 yards.
That was great.
Boom.
Because they need to give themselves obviously that space,
and I think
to really work the offense.
And I think that's where the Giants basically said to the Denver Broncos, "Shut the fuck up." Right there. I think that sealed the deal.
That was a big play.
That was 8 minutes left in the 4th quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Was a huge. That stop was huge.
Yeah.
And then the fact that they were able to move the ball after that was huge.
Yeah.
They played a great game.
Exactly.
Defensively, you were asking me about.
Yeah.
Like I say, they allowed yardage, not scoring. They had that goal line stand. They only allowed 46 yards rushing.
Wow.
I mean, Denver is known as a rushing team.
That's right. We were concerned about that. They average 148 yards rushing a game, I think.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and they shut them down. They totally looked like last year's defense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Pierre-Paul had 3 sacks.
Yeah.
Jenkins
Snacks had one as well.
Okay.
Snacks had
Of course, Jenkins, he played Demaryius Thomas really tough.
Yeah.
Because Demaryius Thomas is a big, strong receiver. He did allow him to get 133 yards, but had the pick, had the forced fumble. That was big.
Mm-hmm.
The forced fumble was...
Because they were moving the ball pretty well, if I remember correctly.
And then, of course, Landon Collins got a pick. It was kind of a give-me pick. He was just in the right place at the right time.
Right.
But he got a pick.
Yeah,
listen,
the
guys that were if you think of the named guys on the Giants, okay, obviously you're going to think of Eli Manning, Odell Beckham, of course, okay. But in my mind, as a fan, I think about Justin Pugh.
Yeah, certainly.
You know, because he's probably the best offensive lineman they have. He had a great game.
Right.
Manning had a good game. I don't really think about Darkwell, but he had a good game. Ingram, good game.
Mm-hmm.
On the defensive side of the ball, superstars. JPP, you think about Jenkins.
Yeah.
Of course, Rogers Cromartie wasn't in the game because of the suspension. We'll talk about that. And who else did we just mention? Collins.
Yeah, Landon Collins.
These are their guys.
Yeah.
These guys came to play.
B.J. Goodson actually did pretty well. And also, I noted that Wynn had come in for Olivier Vernon. And I saw him in on some plays as well. You know, so all very solid.
And their special teams, nothing fancy, but a good, solid performance.
Right.
Their punt return, the guy, he only got 10 yards on a punt return, but it was at a critical moment in the game to get that yardage, and it was just nice to see that little return. It wasn't amazing, but it was sweet.
One thing I did highlight too, Rosas actually kicked his first 50-plus yard field goal, 51-yard field goal.
Yeah.
I know they had one blocked.
They did.
I recall having one blocked, but he did kick a 51-yard field goal, and that's his first 50-plus field goal.
It's good to get that mentally over the hump.
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
I kicked this long field goal in a game in the NFL, not
but it
in
is
practice.
in Denver. They tend to float a little more in Denver, right?
I think that he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be fine.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts? I already gave the Von Miller Goose Egg Award. We did the shut the fuck up moment. Anything outstanding
Well, we've been busting McAdoo's balls so hard. The fans, we on the show, and for good reason in my mind. I thought that he's made a lot of mistakes in his leadership so far in his coaching this year, but I'm going to give him some props this week.
Yeah.
For two things. Obviously the Mike Sullivan thing, but apparently, like you were telling me, apparently the Giants ownership, Mara, Tisch, they had a meeting with McAdoo, and I can't imagine it was just those guys as the owners, but it was probably like a management type meeting.
Yeah.
And they came to the decision that we think this would be the better option, and McAdoo agreed to it.
Yeah.
Didn't fight it.
Yeah. He didn't let his ego get in the way.
But more importantly, the thing that happened with Rogers Cromartie, I was really thinking that the players were going to be upset about that.
Yeah.
But I was wrong.
Yeah.
They weren't upset about that because they really played hard this week.
Yeah.
So for some reason, it seemed like it motivated the defense.
Yeah.
So you don't know the entire situation because you're not there.
That's
but it
right.
seems like McAdoo did something that
woke up the team.
Had good repercussions.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting that. Yeah.
Positive. It was a positive thing, even though it seemed negative.
Yeah.
So I'm giving my props this week.
I think rightfully so.
We'll see as the weeks progress.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay. Well, so why don't we move on to the Seattle game?
Okay.
At this point,
let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna throw out, as I normally do, a few Seattle stats and talking points and stuff like that. A few things that I noted, and certainly, bring in some of your own. Offensive points per game. The offense is scoring roughly 22 points per game.
They've scored a little bit more recently. Man, they were really struggling offensively in the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm.
So, as of recently, they
righted the ship a little bit offensively.
They're ranked number 15 in the league right now on points per game, whatever that's worth. Their team power ranking, by the way, is at number 5. Defensive points per game, 17.4 points per game that this defense is giving up. So here's the opposite side of that that's really interesting. The Giants defense is giving up 22 points per game. And Seattle is averaging 22 points per game, strangely enough. The Giants offense is scoring 17.5 points per game. And the Seattle defense is giving up 17.4 points per game, which means this is going to be a tie, right? or the Seattle Seahawks are going to win 22 to 17.5. Yeah. So anyway, any other stats you see in there that are worthy of? You were talking about rushing stats.
No, I think that their rushing defense is not as good as it used to be. Their secondary is still spot on.
Right.
The Seahawks.
Okay.
And Eli's going to have to contend with that. That's going to be a big thing to watch. I think this game relies more on Eli than the last game.
Right.
But then again, Denver has a really good secondary too.
Yeah.
Seattle's not playing in the Superdome.
Right.
You know, in Seattle.
Right.
They're playing at MetLife, so they don't have the 12th man.
Right. And so interesting. Another stat I pulled up was third down conversion stat. When Seattle's playing right now, they're averaging 42.86, so 43 basically percent on third down conversions total. Okay. When they're at home, they have 53%.
That's amazing.
Third down conversion at home, but when they're away, they're down to 35%.
Yeah.
So that's a 15% difference, basically.
Yeah.
Almost 20% difference between the two. Certainly, that's something that the Giants can look at. Trying to keep those third downs mean a lot to me because they're killers.
Sure.
If you can keep another team from converting on third downs, you stop a drive.
I mean, you think of when we go to the game, and we even when you're watching television, I mean,
right.
That's the down that you're watching mostly.
Yeah.
Either for your team to, number one, advance the ball if they're on offense, or to stop it on defense.
Exactly.
That's the down.
Exactly.
That's the down. So, yeah. It's an important stat. Third down stats are very important.
Yards per game were interesting just from the sheer fact of that they're not regardless of the team power ranking at number 5, their offense is scoring is creating 337, almost 338 yards per game, which is only in the middle of the pack in the league. And their defense is 330 yards per game that they're giving up. Again, middle of the pack. So not an extraordinary amount that they're giving up. And there's further, you can really break it down and start going into a whole bunch of stuff. But point being is I'm not seeing where it's just they're blowing everybody out of the water here.
Oh, no, they're not a blowout team this year. They might have had one game this year that I think just last week, as a matter of fact, they put the beat down on somebody, but they're not a team that's and that was at Seattle.
Right.
They're historically they're very hard to beat at home.
Mm-hmm.
For many years.
Yeah.
Even when they had not great seasons, not when they were contenders like they have been in the last 5 or 6 seasons.
Yeah.
They historically play good at home. On the road, not as good, but they're still obviously a team that you have to deal with.
Exactly.
I think that the Giants have to take advantage of the poor rushing defense. They got to run the ball effectively. To me, they got to play the same way they did. They have to have the same type of game that they had against Denver. Besides the rushing defense, I think that the Seattle secondary is stronger than the rushing defense, and then on Denver, their rushing defense was stronger than the secondary, but we were able to take advantage of that.
You were saying that their defense is giving up 127 yards a game.
Yeah,
rushing.
So I really hope we can take care of that, and then take our opportunities
right.
to throw the ball.
Yeah. And we don't have to throw downfield. To be quite honest, you don't even have to be anywhere around Richard Sherman. You know, I mean, the one thing about Richard Sherman is if he gets it, everybody gets pumped up about it.
Well, they're not.
Keep him out of the game. So well, no, that's true.
Team.
That's true. Yeah, the team.
Yes.
That's what I was really kind of. He's just one of those guys that tends to pump the team up.
By the way, you know, Cromartie got reinstated today.
Yeah, we were going to actually talk about that as well as we were closing out. But yeah, he did get reinstated, so we will see him this weekend.
So that's good because we need him in the secondary. I think he's going to be pretty amped up.
Yeah.
Vernon will probably play.
I'd like to see Olivier Vernon come in hot.
I think he's going to play.
Yeah.
You know, it's great when you play against a defensive team. Giants are known as a defensive team.
Right.
Haven't had great games until the last game that they had. And though they had some other good performances this year. You know. But now they're playing against Seattle, and they want to measure up.
I'm going to tell you what.
They want to measure up against this team because Seattle is known as a great defense.
Yeah.
And has been for the last 5-6 seasons.
And we need a win on the NFC side of the slate too.
No question.
So I did want to focus a little bit on probably the main man of the Seahawks, and that's Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Just
on where he sits now. Everybody knows Russell Wilson. They know he's a rusher. He can burn you in the pocket and he can burn you outside the pocket.
They have to contain Russell Wilson.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And in fact, so he is second on the team in rushing currently. He's averaging 6.9 yards. Oh no, I'm sorry. Second on the team, 5.1 yard average rushing right now. And that's not with one rush, that's with 30 rushes. That's with 30 rushes this year. 5.1 yard average.
He's good with his legs. Always has been.
He's thrown 3 interceptions. But now this is something that kind of spaced me out a little bit. On his yards per attempt for passing, his average is 6.9 yards. He's not going down the field that much. Which, from what I can see, that doesn't mean he hasn't hit him down the field.
Yeah, percentage-wise, maybe he's not going to field a lot, but they're one of the top teams in big plays.
Yeah,
20-plus yard plays. I saw that stat today.
Yeah, so I don't know where everything else is. I'm not sure.
So Giants can't allow that.
No, I agree with you.
And they also have, even though he hasn't had a great year, Jimmy Graham, their tight end, is a playmaking tight end. And the Giants have not been good against tight ends. That's where they kind of were getting burned this year.
Yeah.
You know, offensively, they need to make sure that doesn't happen. Landon Collins got to be on that dude, man.
Yeah, no doubt. One more thing, his quarterback rating, he's rated number 14 at a 51-point quarterback rating. So that's pretty much what I have for the Seahawks. I know we have Michael Bennett on defense. That still has to be a concern. I want to say he's got 4 sacks on the season, if I'm not mistaken. And then we talked about the secondary being
Sherman, Cam Chancellor.
Yeah, being a tough secondary. They have 5 interceptions by 5 different people in that secondary.
They're extremely opportunistic.
Yeah, and again, we talked about the 3 turnovers that the Giants had in Denver. Well, what helped that out was the fact that the Giants had 0 turnovers. We need that 0. And you know what? We've had 0 turnovers 2 games in a row.
No, Giants are doing good with that.
Yeah. So I think maybe we're starting to see a pattern here that we need to just keep it going, you know.
Well, they did turn the ball over against San Diego. Remember the fumble? Eli Sack fumble?
Okay, then maybe it was the game before that where
Probably
there was no...
before that.
Was that Tampa Bay game?
Yes.
No turnovers in the Tampa Bay game?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
Because we didn't get any turnovers either.
Okay.
We didn't.
That was 0-0 on that. Yeah. Okay. So based on everything we reviewed with the Seahawks and the Giants, based on their performance against the Broncos. Do you have any final thoughts going into this game?
Well, I just hope they can have a repeat performance going into their bye week. And, if they can win their second, it was funny because my brother sent me a text after they won this last game, and he said, "Darn it, I really care again."
Really? Statement of the year.
And it's so true because you just start thinking, is this possible?
Yeah.
Because I really did not think that they were going to win against Denver.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I always picked the Giants, but I didn't think. I think that the Broncos and Seattle are built similarly. They're similarly built teams, built on defense primarily. So if they can get that second win and go into the bye week, get healthy a little bit more, and then put a little run together.
We should expect Sterling Shepard back. And as you were saying,
that's
Olivier
right.
Vernon.
They might keep Sterling Shepard out. I don't know about his health.
Yeah.
Going into the bye week, they may just think that he might need one more week. So we just have to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
But I hope he does play.
Yeah.
I hope he does play.
Certainly.
But if we could put a little run together, just imagine they could be the next game after the bye is the Rams. They're playing at the Giants. That's a winnable game.
Certainly.
And then they're going out to San Francisco.
Winnable game.
Definitely a winnable game. There's a possibility that this team could be 4-5 going into probably the next really big game. I think the Seattle game is a pretty big game.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can pull it off, it's possible. Now we've seen what they can do and what they've done against Denver. It's possible they could beat the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking right now like there's they don't have a chance. That thought crossed my mind last week.
Certainly.
They don't have a chance against Denver.
Certainly.
Especially because they were playing in Denver.
Yeah.
I think they very possibly could be 4-5 going into Week 11 to play KC at MetLife, and that would be as much as we could ask for.
I think with the idea that Mike Sullivan is now calling plays, there's a little bit more encouragement, and we've seen a team now that seems to really have stepped it up. And whether it's because of McAdoo or the change in Mike Sullivan, whatever the case, they have really put it all out on the field, and so we have to give them credit for that.
Also, the Eagles are playing the Redskins on Monday night, so there's a divisional game, which means that we obviously have to root for the Redskins.
Of course.
If they're able to take that game away from Philly and tighten that conference up a little bit more, the possibilities are there. Because towards the end of the season, the Giants, they still have to play Philly. They've got to play the Redskins twice, and they have to play Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas twice.
So it's still a winnable conference.
It certainly is.
No question. It's mathematically, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Philly needs to lose some games.
Yeah, they do.
But
a wild card spot's always there too, but we've got a long way to go.
Very true. One game at a time.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens with the Seattle game, and then we'll speculate further as to the possibilities of what could happen down the road here.
I agree. Well, thank you for joining us. Again, want to thank Tin Cannon for some fabulous beer tonight. And thank Big Blue Nova for sticking with us. And again, thank you very much for sticking with us. Please give any comments to the section below the YouTube page. And like our Facebook page and send any comments through our Facebook page. Whatever you have, good or bad, we're always willing to listen.
All right, go Giants.
Go Giants.